side and makes the move on the running back and quarterback. He takes him to the ground. Good tackler. But I like Javon Langford. Pat Jones had him at Oklahoma State, and I think Pat Jones liked him. George Perlis really liked him. George Perlis, who coached the guys at the Pittsburgh Steelers for many years, he liked him and said he'd draft him.
Has not always been a student of the game, but has been working out in Denver almost every day since the end of the football season, working one-on-one against Willie Roaf. And he's a guy, having NFL experience, who can certainly teach you a lot. Back down to New York. Mike?
And with Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson and John Copeland there on the defensive line for Cincinnati, some young players. If Langford can develop, Cincinnati could have something real good on the defensive side to go with all the great skill players on the offensive side. Langford played in the Big 8, now the Big 12 at Oklahoma State. Nebraska star Tommy Frazier. What is his draft day status? We'll talk about Frazier when you come back to New York.
Los Angeles, 1953. We don't want organized crime in LA. If you break the law, you'll have to answer to a special squad of detectives with their own brand of justice.
We set it up, get rid of gangsters and criminals, not go up against the Atomic Energy Commission.
What if they're killing people?
This is your chance to see Mulholland Falls. Pick up your complimentary pass at Hammer Jewelers, 4605 North Scottsdale Road.
Working on my car more myself these days saves me money and keeps it running like I like. Performance is important to me, and that includes the cleanup. Scott shop towels on a roll give me the performance of cloth at a fraction of the cost of these. And Scott shop towels on a roll are so strong, I can use them again and again. So, no matter what it is you're working on, buy some Scott shop towels on a roll where you buy auto supplies. Performance of a cloth at a fraction of the cost.
They encourage, they inspire, and finally, they watch. As America's home improvement coaches, the people of the Home Depot believe in building dreams, just like the coaches of the athletes of the 1996 Olympic Games. We're also proud to include Leslie Locke in our Home Depot Olympic family. They promise you their very best, just like we do every day at the Home Depot.
Our German engineers could have road-tested the Porsche 911 Carrera 4 back home in Germany. They could have taken the 270 horsepower engine out on the Autobahn again, or driven the Black Forest with the all-wheel drive and radical suspension. They could have done all that back home. But then, they wouldn't have gotten all this neat stuff.
You don't need to drive an Indy race car to experience the thrill of the Indy 500. Just enter the ESPN Firestone Indy 500 sweepstakes. You and a guest will go as VIPs to the race, the parade. You'll tour the pit area, attend the driver's meeting, and win all this free Firestone stuff. To enter, visit a participating Firestone retailer or send a postcard with your name, address, and phone number. But hurry, the entry deadline is April 26th.
Those are the only phones that are not ringing at the NFL Draft in New York. We're about midway through. Round 4, 7 rounds all live today on ESPN1, then on ESPN2. Tommy Frazier, he led his team to back-to-back national championships. Big 8 Player of the Year, could very well go undrafted today. Here's his college coach on Tommy Frazier of Nebraska.
I think he's a great talent. I think he should play quarterback. If I were starting an NFL team, I would take Tommy Frazier, partly because of his athleticism, but also partly simply because of his makeup. You know, he's a guy that wins. He's a guy that is a great competitor. And he went out to the East-West game, for instance, an entirely different system, primarily a drop-back system, was named the outstanding player of the game. And most people would say, well, he's not that kind of quarterback, but he can be. And I'll promise you, he can win.
So many questions. There are health questions, which we'll get into in a second. There are quarterback questions. Or is he another position? Is he a potential Cordell Stewart? As you look at that unbelievable offensive resume, all the numbers add up to winner, the bottom line, on Tommy Frazier. To refresh your memory, Tommy Frazier had a blood clot in his leg during his junior season, set out a good bulk of that season, did return to lead his team on the field in the Orange Bowl to the national championship, came back this past year and got Nebraska another national championship. We bring in Dr. Jerry Punch, who's covering our Winston Cup race today at Martinsville. And Dr. Jerry Punch, as you know, works our college football broadcast and is a very highly respected doctor, very familiar with this Frazier situation going back a couple of years. Jerry, take us on the timeline of what happened after Tommy Frazier first had the blood clotting problems.
Well, Michael, when they diagnosed the clot at the end of September, after he had the bruise against Pacific, they actually put him on blood thinners. They put him on a drug called Coumadin, which is the thinnest blood, and try to actually dissolve the clot. He stayed on Coumadin from the middle of October until mid-December of '94. They took him off of that so he could practice for the Orange Bowl. We all know what happened there. He's the MVP. They win the national championship. After the Orange Bowl, they put him back on Coumadin for 2 more months. Now, a total of 4 months on the drug. He went off the drug for spring practice, played the entire 1995 fall season, and was fine. In fact, they scanned him. They did a special scan of his leg every couple, 3 weeks, and they scanned him right before the Fiesta Bowl, and his leg was completely clear. He had no problems whatsoever until a huge surprise in February of this year when he went to the doctor and had a sinus infection. He had a huge infection in the maxillary sinus here just above his cheek, and they found out he had a clot. The clot was in the same leg and the same site, but much more extensive.
So, Jerry, now the medical questions become, after this second clot, how is Tommy Frazier doing right now? And then what is his status in regard to taking these blood thinners that could very well be a part of his life?
Well, they put him back on the Coumadin. He's actually in the hospital 10 days, Michael, at Bryan Memorial there in Lincoln. He lost quite a bit of weight, but they put him back on the Coumadin therapy. And what Tommy would like to see happen is to leave him on the Coumadin for 3 months. Try to give it a 3-month trial. They know it worked the first time, and they have dissolved quite a bit of the clot. There is some clot still residual behind his right knee, but otherwise most of the clot is gone. Now, if he were to stay on for 3 months, that means he would come off the Coumadin in the middle of May and reevaluate then. But as far as physically is concerned, I talked to Tommy a day or so ago. He is running, he is lifting weights, he's playing basketball. His weight is back up over 205 pounds. He may be in the best physical shape he has been in a long time.
Jerry, let's break this down to the specifics for today's NFL draft. Forgetting football reasons, just health reasons. I'm an NFL general manager. You're a doctor who's advising me a little bit. Just in general terms, somebody has a blood clot the first time it gets treated. Then if that clot reoccurs, are we talking about an increase in the probability that this may be a problem down the line for the individual?
You know, medicine is a lot like law, Michael. You know, you always want, if you have a tough case, you want to go back and look through the law books to see where the precedents have been set and what decision was made prior to that. If you research the literature, and I spoke with Tommy's cardiovascular surgeon, Deepak Gangahar in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they've researched it. They've gone to the Mayo Clinic, they've gone to Johns Hopkins, they've gone to England to try to get information, and they can find no precedent set as far as what to do. No previous young athlete in college or the NFL has had a similar kind of clot and had it dissolved and gone on to play football. So he's sort of a guinea pig in that regard. But if you look at the precedents that are in the literature, Dr. Gangahar said the first clot, the likelihood of recurrence, 15 to 20%. When the second clot occurs, the likelihood of recurrence is 20 to 30%. But for Tommy Frazier, remember, he's already beaten the odds once and come back and played an entire year with no problems.
Jerry, thank you very much. We'll see you at 1 Eastern for our live flag-to-flag coverage of the Goodies Headache Powder 500 there in Martinsville. That's the medical side of the Tommy Frazier story. Now there's the whole football question. Do you take him? Where do you take him? The kid wants to play quarterback, but where will he play? We've told you Mark Malone is here with us in New York. Let's bring in Mark and ask him, Mark, where do you see Tommy Frazier in the National Football League?
Well, I'll tell you, with all due respect to Tom Osborne, this kid is a great athlete. He's a great competitor, and he did do well in the All-Star games. Of course, you mentioned Cordell Stewart, Mike. Cordell Stewart was very intriguing to the Pittsburgh Steelers as a guy who could play quarterback. They liked him as a quarterback prospect, but also thought he was a great athlete and might fill in some other areas. That ended up being the case. I talked to Pittsburgh this week. They've told me that Cordell Stewart is much further behind than you would expect a quarterback after his first year because he wasn't in many meetings, and there's still some doubt as to whether or not he'll play. Tommy Frazier, I think, is even further back. He played in an offense that ran the ball with so much effectiveness that when he did throw the ball and had some success in college, he was throwing one-on-one situations, not into complicated secondary schemes. I think it's going to take him a long time to develop into an NFL quarterback. He is competitive. I think he's got the arm. He's a great athlete. But at this point, I don't think this kid can really come in and make an impact. He might go to the Canadian Football League, or he might be a late-round pick, somebody a team might want to try to develop. Mike?
Mark, let's get more opinion on the Tommy Frazier situation, bringing in Chris Myers, who's at Cowboy headquarters in Valley Ranch. Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. An offensive coordinator in the Central Division who worked out Cordell Stewart last